Is it business or politics or simply racism? Even as Mittal points to dangers posed by Chinese steel makers, Europe remains reluctant about his bid for ASEAN. Japan's fantasy culture gets real with a cafe in Tokyo full of maids waiting to serve the master. And the Berlin Film Festival gets underway with the latest and greatest of European cinema and an Indian contingent.
In recent times, a number of important figures from President George W. Bush to Wipro's chief Azim Premji have been asking for an increase in the number of H1B visas given out.
Businesses say the current number allowed is too low at a time when bilateral trade is exploding. Here's a special report.
I think the biggest issue we are facing as a country and as an industry with US is caps or limits on visas, which have remained constant for almost 4 years.
If there's one subject Indian business and government agree on, it's pushing for an increase in the number of H1B visas given out by the US each year. The current limit set by the US Congress is 65,000. Last year, the Indian government appealed to the World Trade Organization and the US government to raise the number to 195,000. In October, the Senate Judiciary Committee said it wanted to formally increase the H1B quotas by a mere 30,000, but this too was rejected. Business leaders in the US and in India say the low cap on visas hurts trade opportunities.
See, it is an acknowledged fact that India has a dynamic and highly educated pool of young engineers, and whereas there is a demographic challenge in the United States with an aging population. In the interest of both the economies, I think integration of resources and talent should be freely allowed.
H1B visas are meant for a range of professionals from computer engineers to lawyers. Given the overall growth in bilateral trade between the US and India, more realistic levels are needed.
Trade and investment between the United States and India has almost doubled over the last 3 years with a growth rate of about 30 to 35% each year. It is high time that the quota of H1B visas is increased proportionately.
But every attempt to expand the number has failed in the US Congress as representatives fear politically expensive job losses.
It is clear 65,000 visas per year is not enough for India or the US. But raising visas is a politically sensitive subject. The reason why Congress year after year refuses to do so despite requests from the Bush administration and businesses. And until this political will is in place, businesses in India and the US will simply have to wait. Ambarish Diwanji in Mumbai for Times Now.
William Hawkins, Senior Fellow at the United States Business and Industry Council, joins us from Washington, D.C. Mr. Hawkins, great to have you on the show. Thanks so much. You're opposed to expanding the H1B visa numbers. Can you explain why you think the U.S. should keep the number where it is?
Well, we haven't seen any real sign that that there's a tight market in the technical IT engineering fields. There hasn't been any upward pressure on salaries or wages in this area. The recovery from the recession has been fairly slow in terms of creating jobs in this area. So we feel that there isn't a need to bring in more foreign workers. That the effect of that would be to displace American workers or lower wages, and we're opposed to either of those.
But Mr. Hawkins, US companies are some of the biggest lobbyists pushing for an expansion of the numbers. Are they wrong then?
Well, there's two issues here. Firms obviously want to hire cheaper workers. Low-cost wages is one of the things driving a lot of trade as well as immigration. But what's good for individual companies in their pursuit of lowering their wage bills is not the same thing as what's good for the country. And the U.S. Business and Industry Council takes the U.S. part of our name very seriously. We look at issues at what's best for the country. In the long run, that means building up our own living standards and salaries for our own high-tech people.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins, for joining us. William Hawkins, Senior Fellow at the U.S. Business and Industry Council, joining us from Washington. And Bush has been a strong advocate as well.
Up next, their numbers might be small, but their strengths are many. We'll bring you the outlook for the Indian team at the Winter Games in Turin, Italy.